ঠিক আছে।
আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। ভালো
I
লাগছে
think
অনেকদিন পর দেখে।
তুহিন স্যার মোটমাট দুজনকেই চেনেন, সঙ্গীতা ম্যাডামকেও চেনেন, আনিসুল স্যারকেও চেনেন।
বহু বছর
তুহিন
ধরে
স্যার আমাকে চেনেন না, কিন্তু উনি হচ্ছেন আমার দ্রোণাচার্যের মতো। মানে আমি এত বেশি ওনার রিসার্চ ওয়ার্ক থেকে ইন্সপায়ার্ড হয়েছি, ফলো করেছি।
তাই? আচ্ছা। অবশ্য হ্যাঁ, বিশ্বজিৎ বলছিল। ঠিকই,
আর
ঠিকই।
সঙ্গীতা ম্যাডাম জয়েন করেছেন। ম্যাডাম গুড ইভিনিং। সুচিতা ম্যাম, সরি সুচিতা ম্যাম, সরি সুচিতা দি গুড ইভিনিং। আসলে আমার আজকে গলাটা আজকে গেছে এবং ইনফ্যাক্ট আমি এখন দিল্লিতে বসেই আছি, এডুকেশন মিনিস্ট্রিতে অফিসে বসে জয়েন করতে হয়েছে, এমনই কপাল।
ঠান্ডা নিশ্চয়ই ভালো দিল্লিতে?
হ্যাঁ, খুবই ঠান্ডা বলতে
হ্যাঁ,
পারেন।
আমাদের মতো নয়।
না না
আমাদের
না,
অবস্থা খারাপ।
আপনারা আপাতত সৌভাগ্যবান হয়ে আছেন। সো
হ্যাঁ।
I think it's একদম 7:30, so we should start. And first of all, on behalf of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development, as a chairman and on behalf of my whole team, I would like to heartily congratulate and welcome to all of you, all the delegates, all the resource person, participants, those who have joined for this second Indo-International River Dialogue, which today we are going to organize on in association with the Bangladesh. And on first of all, as on behalf of my country as well, definitely I heartily welcome to Professor Anishul sir and also Professor Shuchita Sarmin ma'am for joining us, and also Honorable Speaker Professor Tuhin Ghosh from Jadavpur University, Dr. Aparna Bera, she is the Research Director of SAIARD, as well as Professor Sangeeta Agarwal ma'am, and she is also a research fellow, associate fellow of SAIARD. So, though first I would like to take my apologies for my voice, and but still the river dialogue, as you know, that on behalf of SAIARD, from the very beginning of our platform, we have continued these kind of dialogue, intellectual discussions, and also capacity building activities in different sectors, particularly in river sector as well. And we have a center, that is the Center for River Affairs, and you will be happy to know that this center is now also associated as the regional capacity building center of Ministry of Jal Shakti National Mission for Clean Ganga. And we are working very closely, and through this event we have center, we have already organized our first international river congress, and in coming G20 mission, our organization is also become a part or partner organization. And on behalf of that, we are also going to get some more opportunities and more responsibilities to organize such kind of dialogue under this mission of G20. So it's a big honor for us, and also as G20 is not only part of India but also a global platform. So I think this river dialogue, which we have started in association with the Ireland in last few months back, and this is the second Indo-River dialogue, and we are also going to organize several river dialogues in several countries. And we are not only focusing on this dialogue, but also on behalf of SAIARD, we have taken some initiative which we will definitely share to all of you, particularly in case of capacity building programs, outreach programs, and collaborative activities, research projects, as that we can support our upcoming generations through that different kind of initiative. And today in Delhi, we had a have to associate with an International Water Week convention. There we had a very good discussion with the WWF, and they would love to work together in coming year and for the betterment of the students of Bengal, and they would like to take some students as well in case of river sector project. And so in that various aspect, and also I would like to share another point, that on behalf of SAIARD, as we are today, the theme which we have kept, the title, that is the whether my son will be able to see the Sundarban again. It's not just a title, it's a voice which we have get from a person, those who belong from a fisherman from Sundarban. because Dr. Aparna Bera has conducted her PhD on the climate change and migration related issues, livelihood support related issues in Sagar Island. So there one fisherman, whenever she conducted her research survey, one fisherman asked this question by himself at least. So I know that Sundarban, I am not an expert in Sundarban, but I know what is the issue is going on and what is the synergies right now. And you people now associated today through this platform, I hope through this discussion we definitely get some ideas, some new thinking, some intellectual points which we can apply in further studies and further application for the livelihood support of the Sundarban people, as well as to get some resilient initiatives which through which we can create some agendas. On the basis of that we can also submit it to the government, because I'm saying in that sense that on behalf of SAIARD, in coming June, under the framework of World Environment Day as well as the G20 mission, SAIARD Center for River Affairs is going to organize the first International Delta Summit in Kolkata. And I would love to invite to all of you to be a part of that summit to share your experience views. But before that, this dialogue is very important, I think. And through your expertise, whatever the research ideas, research outcomes you have gained, and this is we would like to hear from all of you. And as I mentioned from very earlier, that this is not just a presentation type dialogue, but it's one kind of interactive session which through your experience, whatever the knowledge you have gained, whatever the practical experience you have experienced through your activities, research work, we would like to hear. And hopefully the participants, those who have joined from the different college, universities, research scholar, faculties, and hopefully everybody will be helpful, because this recording will be shared to through our social media platforms as well. So I will no longer extend my voice. So already the voice is cracking. So I think now the podium is yours, and I request our today's moderator, Dr. Shangita Agarwal ma'am, to continue today's discussion and dialogues with our honorable speakers. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, and many, many congratulations that SAIARD
Thank
is
you.
doing such a good work.
Thank you,
So,
ma'am.
sir,
Thank you.
first we start with our guest. So, I would like to call Professor Anisul Haq. I'll give a very brief introduction about him because he's a known person. He's been working in this field for more than 30 years. And he is a professor at the Institute of Water and Flood Management of Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. His academic interest involves numerical modeling, basic hydraulics, coastal and marine processes, computational fluid dynamics and hazards, vulnerability risk resilience assessment. So he teaches most of these courses, and he has been involved in several research projects related to modeling of biophysical processes, natural and human systems, and as well as adaptation and risk analysis. So I would like to request Sir to join the discussion. So Sir, we start with you and we welcome you to this panel discussion. Warm greetings from India. So now it is over to you.
Thank you. So from my profile, you understand I am basically a modeler, a hardcore modeler. So, but Sundarban is very soft. So I will show some of my research results, very few in fact, from the view of modeler, the how Sundarban is contributing to, especially to the biophysical process, and what is future of Sundarban. Can I share the screen? Because few presented, few slides I've shown, very few.
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can you see?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. So this is Sundarban. This is the Bangladesh part. These pictures are taken by me. So I recently went to Sundarban. So I watched Sundarban from 2 points of view. You can see this is the spacing. We say that this kind of spacing, it acts as a buffer. Already know that Sundarban is protecting our coast from, especially from cyclone and surge. How? So this close spacing of trees, it inserts the resistance to the incoming surge, and that protects the coast from surge, especially from the storm surge and the wind speed. And this picture shows the sacrifice of Sundarban, because it is these trees fall down mainly from cedars. So still you can see this the role of Sundarban, how it is protecting us. And in a recent field visit, one of the farmers said that Sundarban is our mother. So she is protecting us by sacrificing herself. So it's true, in fact. And this is the different source of livelihood. I am not a livelihood expert, but this golpata, the Bawali, they are dependent on this golpata. So there are still large number of golpata available in Sundarban. I have seen from the riverside. And this is the source of nutrient-rich water bodies. All you know that the fishery and other things. So I will not go into the detailed service how Sundarban is providing. We all know it. Now, what Sundarban is doing for us, you can see these are some few model studies for combined India and Bangladesh Sundarban, because I think Sundarban is the only soft corner for both India and Bangladesh, which is a common, because we have a lot of debate, a lot of conflict about the water issue between India and Bangladesh. But when it comes about Sundarban, we are in the same. I think all we love Sundarban. So we should do jointly for the sake of Sundarban. See what will happen. This is a model result for cyclone Amphan, the inundation. So this shows the inundation when Sundarban is protecting us. So you can see the inundated area we have calculated it is almost 720 square meter. And this scenario shows a probable scenario when Sundarban is depleted. For example, Sundarban is not providing the buffer service anymore. So you can see how the inundated area has increased. It has increased to 5,966 square kilometer. So this map shows the increased inundation. So it is almost 8 times. So silently, Sundarban is protecting us from this kind of cyclonic surges. This is a recent example of Amphan. And this bit complicated, but this model result shows the force exerted by a cyclone on the land. So this left map shows the thrust force, when Sundarban remains as it is. So this darker line shows that weaker force. This is the force which creates most of the damage, because the building collapse, the house collapse, the embankment collapse. This is due to this force. So you can see, so this is the track of Amphan, the red line, and the India-Bangladesh border is this is the India-Bangladesh border. So most of this region is high force area. Low force area, the dark green area. But when Sundarban lost its function, you see that the lighter green, it is the increased force. So Sundarban is protecting us both from inundation and also from the impact of task force, which reduces the damage significantly. So you can understand why that farmer said that Sundarban is like my mother, is protecting us. This is how it is protecting. This is the scientific explanation how Sundarban is protecting us. Now, what Sundarban is doing for us, we did few more studies to see the impact of this kind of mangrove afforestation. We have inserted some artificial afforestation in our model to represent we call it green belt, because it's a very popular concept with the government. They are thinking about the nature-based solution, artificial afforestation, etc. So we wanted to see how it works. So we introduced an artificial 1 kilometer wide coastal afforestation behind the embankment, because in the Bangladesh part, I am not sure about the Sundarban part, the most of the damage for the cyclone is caused due to breaching of embankment. So one question is, if we do this kind of afforestation, will it be helpful to protect the embankment as well? So this is how the afforestation can help the embankment breaching and overtopping. So this is the afforestation. So you can see this is the wave height. So incoming wave is the mangrove belt. Most of the wave is attenuated, and this significantly reduces the wave height, and also, as you see before, the force inserted on the embankment. So Sundarban and this kind of forest can significantly reduce the force inserted on the embankment and the overtopping possibility. So both way it can protect us. And this figure shows how much force is reduced. This force is reduced. So we did this simulation for cyclone Cedar for different districts, Patuakhali, Bhola, Pargana, Bagirhat. And you can see that this red line shows that the green belt without green belt, the impact, and the green was with green belt. So almost 50% reduction of force. So reduction of thrust force due to green belt reduces loss and damage, no doubt about this. A reduced thrust on the embankment decreases the probability of embankment reaching, and green belt can be considered as a second line of defense behind embankment. So Sundarban silently is playing this role for us. And this is the this one is secondary literature. The erosion rate of Sundarban, they studied for from 73 to 2010. And they have calculated the rate. So it is alarming, 7.3 square kilometer to 23.2 square kilometer. I don't have the recent data, but I think the trend is now continuing. This shows again some model result. So this is about future of Sundarban. There is a lot of talk that what will happen if sea level rises due to climate change. So the situation is not very good. So this map shows an average flooding all over the Bangladesh. It is only the Bangladesh part. We didn't include the Indian part because of the lack of data. So this is without sea level rise situation, where this is the Sundarban. The inundated part of Sundarban is 432 square kilometer. And this is the scenario for the year 2088 due to sea level rise of 1.48 meter. So it's an extreme condition. So this will significantly increase the inundation of Sundarban about 8 times. So this is really a concern. In fact, the impact of sea level rise, and if the discharge increases, that can increase the inundation of Sundarban. I think the same will be true for the Indian part also. And this from a secondary literature, they studied the estimated tiger population loss due to increase of sea level rise. So only 24 or 28 centimeter sea level rise can significantly reduce the tiger population. So you can imagine that until 2088, we will see, we think, not a single tiger in Sundarban. If this happens, if we cannot do anything. And this shows the salinity. So this is the salinity distribution in a typical dry year. It is for the whole India, Bangladesh. It is a dome-shaped salinity distribution. And this shows salinity distribution in zero sea level rise condition. And this shows when sea level rise increases by 1.48 meter. So one thing is sure, that sea level rise will not significantly increase the salinity, especially in the Sundarban, but it will increase the inundation. But the problem is reduced upstream discharge. So if discharge decreases in the upstream, so this is the change of salinity level. So that will significantly increase salinity in the Sundarban region, and as a whole, the whole coastal region of Bangladesh. And the reduced upstream discharge, it deals with the the common rivers of the region. For example, the Ganges, it's a common river. Brahmaputra is a common river. So if by any reason the discharge is reduced, both India and Bangladesh will suffer because of, especially the Sundarban part. The salinity will significantly increase. So I'll quickly come to the conclusion, my concluding remarks from very few slides, that Sundarban acts as a buffer against cyclone and storm surge and is a source of diverse livelihoods. Depletion of Sundarban can result in increase in coastal inundation. We have seen that it is about 8 times increase in inundated area. And thrust force due to Amphan strain cyclone in GBM delta. So if a moderate cyclone, Amphan, although we call it super cyclone, but its strength was very high in the ocean, but not in the land. But if a cyclone like Cedar, which hit the land with tremendous force. So that the influence of Sundarban is, you can understand it, how Sundarban is saving us. And erosion rate of Sundarban varies. It's very old data, 7.2 to 23.3 square kilometer. And due to sea level rise, total area of Sundarban may decrease due to about 8 times increase of inundated area during the end of century. This will cause decrease of tidal population in an alarming rate. And reduced upstream discharge creates more severe impact of increased salinity in the Sundarban compared to sea level rise. So if we are not proactive at this moment to save Sundarban, then our next generation will say, once upon a time, there was a forest named Sundarban. We should not allow to this kind of situation. Thank you very much.
So thank you for your wonderful presentation. And also, the situation is very alarming. So, sir, can we have some questions now, or we have all the panelists talk?
I think let the panelists talk first, and then we will start our second phase question answer session.
Okay. So now, next, I would like to call upon Suchita ma'am. So before I hand over the stage to her, I would give her a brief introduction. She has been teaching in the university for more than 20 years, and she has vast research experiences in Bangladesh and also teaching in Japan, Switzerland, UK, Nepal, Malaysia, and also in India. Her field of is development studies, psychology, research methodology, disaster risk reduction, climate change, and business studies. Presently, she is working as a professor at the Department of Development Studies, University of Dhaka. And she has extensive research field knowledge. She's done a lot of work also, and she's got an experience of working with government agencies, UN, and NGOs. She's got vast experience. She's got 3 books and more than 50 journal articles in peer-reviewed journals. So, ma'am, over to you. Now let us hear from her experiences.
Thank you, Dr. Shangita. Thank you very much. I had been hearing Dr. Anisul, Dr. Anisul Haq, and it was, of course, a very enriching speech that I heard. And his speech was very much academic as well as very recent experience he has shared, and the concern of the possibility of some damage to our Sundarbans is very much evident and scientifically proved through his speech. I hope you all can hear me rightly. The sound is okay now, Shangita?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So being a professor of development studies, my way of thinking is from that lens. Of course, I have a multidisciplinary background with psychology as my mother discipline, and then I studied development studies and disaster risk reduction. So in that way, I look into the matter from a different lens, a little different lens, because when we think of Sundarbans, there are people who are residing in the same area, same like nearby villages, and they of course come across different disasters which leave them vulnerable in different ways. At the same time, through their livelihoods, challenges, and very few livelihoods options, because those who are in the fisherman community are always very much only in that livelihoods option and not going for farming. So those issues are vital when thinking about the concern from a socioeconomic perspective. In that way, if I just start by saying that when Bangladesh was actually being described as the country of floods in the 1970s and 80s, very much with the photos of floods in different parts of the country, and of course in the coastal areas, cyclones. The concern was about how to control floods and what to do. And at that time in the 1980s, what we saw that World Bank and 16 other international agencies, they decided to build dams around our coastal areas and embankments, and which actually led into not development, but a development disaster, because it had many negative consequences that had been actually later on published in books of 23 volumes, which showed how biodiversity was actually many different varieties and species were distinct, and biodiversity was very much hampered by such development initiative. Actually, they tried to control flood, they tried to control different disasters, but their initiative, their intervention turned into a disaster itself. So it was a development disaster. This is how it started. And for Sundarbans, as I visited in different points in time, I saw that the fishermen community are the most vulnerable because of their because they constitute the community in those areas with their specific livelihoods. And of course, they encounter different types of disasters. It's natural disaster as well as social disasters, because it's not only that the natural disasters are causing harm to the nature or livelihoods, but in many different households, what we see is that the members of the households who are in fishing profession in the Bay of Bengal, they go for fishing. They previously they were having difficulties in getting correct weather information, and they were dying or they were getting wounded, and thus the consequences were not only a natural disaster for their families, the households, for them, those were very much as well social disasters. And later on, we had comprehensive coastal zone management program, where the government initiated many different studies. And of course, we had the artificial forestation in the coastal embankments. Of course, even in the Sundarbans, when people had to enter, they had to, from the forest department, they have to collect the, they have to pay the fee and collect their registration and card, and then only they can go. However, still there are many different ways. The forest itself is still being exploited because of the local people, because they are very poor people. They don't have many livelihoods options, and the forest itself had been their way of living for many years. So these are how the issues had been growing, and how we can think of it. And when we are in the era of sustainable development goals, and when we consider climate change to be addressed, and when we consider lives under water to be very important, and how those issues can contribute for economic growth as well as social cohesion, and of course going forward in different ways for different types of development, then Sundarbans of course poses the opportunity, as well as the way we are dealing with it is giving us the concern as well. I'm not focusing much on climate change because my previous speaker talked about it much, but I believe there are many social, economic, cultural, as well as when there is a cyclone alert, people are not willing to consider that very important, and they don't want to move to the cyclone shelters because they consider their indigenous knowledge to be more important. And sometimes that cause huge damage, not only to their lives, livelihoods, their assets, but of course, as a total society, they get damaged. And their kinship bondage is get affected because members die and their social cohesion gets affected. In this, when we are considering all these issues and when we are thinking of the future of the Sundarbans, and of course, it's not only in Bangladesh, but of course, also in India, it's a regional concern, as I feel, and there should be many different ways we have to think about different vulnerabilities being caused by development interventions, also by nature itself, and how we can consider and how we can prevent them, what initiatives we should take actually for the betterment of the situation. With these few words, I would like to stop here, and maybe I will join again during the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, so much for your enlightening experiences. And definitely the social aspect is very important. And when we say that there are many encroachers, but ma'am, they have been dependent on the forest for their livelihood. So it is very difficult when we tell them to move out, they think they would be protected. So they are depending on their knowledge, and many times the knowledge is also help them because it has got a lot of treasures also. They are surviving on those knowledge. So with this, I would now request our next speaker for the day, Professor Tuhin Ghosh. So before inviting him, I will give a very brief introduction. Professor Ghosh is the director of the School of Oceanographic Studies, Jadavpur University. He has expertise in coastal geomorphology, disaster management, climate change impacts, adaptation strategies, and human migration. He is the lead author of IPCC Special Report on Ocean and Cryosphere Chapter 4, Sea Level Rise and Implication for Low-Lying Islands, Coast and Communities. In fact, I had referred to this when I was writing a book chapter on migration. So, sir, that has been very, very well written. He has been also invited to act as a lead author on urban climate science in new CCRN ARC 3.3. He was the India lead of ESPA Deltas and DECCMA project and ongoing Living Deltas Hub. So this very short introduction, I would request Tuinda to take the stage. Welcome, Tuinda.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for your kind introduction, and my hearty thanks to the organizers for inviting me on this stage. And I should say that myself and Anishul Bhai is working since the ESPA Delta project, afterwards the DECMA project, and now in the Living Deltas project. So we know each other very well, long time. And I really sorry that I didn't get any opportunity to meet Suchita madam, but hopefully I will meet her somewhere very soon. Thank you very much. And I am really enlightened from their talk. And also I had learned something new from Anisul Bhai and also Suchita madam. In my sayings, actually, I would try to come up with some other kind of flavor for this kind of degradation in the Sundarban part. Maybe a little bit irrelevant, but I will start with the Indian perspective of the deltas. So we know Indian deltas are mostly in the eastern coast, like the Sundarban Delta, and then Rambani, Baitarani in between. Subarnarekha is also there, the smaller delta, and then Mahanadi, Krishna, Kaveri, Godavari. All these deltas are in the eastern coast. Due to the geologic reason, there is no such delta in the western coast. So if we see the history of the Indian governance, the deltas are always neglected. In the Indian part, they always try to keep the rivers alive, earlier time rather. And the western coast, they used to dependent on the trade and business, all these things through the sea way. So in that way, the eastern coast is mostly dependent on agriculture, and riverine civilization is there. And in the western coast, they are mostly on the trade and business part. So in India, actually, the delta part is very negligible landmass in terms of the area of India. And the deltas are always neglected due to the salinity, unfertile soil, and all these things. Later on, some people, they realized that there are a lot of resources and they came up with their ambition. Unlike Bangladesh, Bangladesh is really considering their whole country as delta. So they are very, very proactive with the delta plan and all these management aspects. But in India, the deltas are not there. Even in the recent reports, the deltas are really not there. And whenever there are some people, they ask me that what is the climate justice in the deltas? I used to say them that the deltas are not getting justice since long. So how the people or the social ecological system in the delta can get any kind of social justice or climate justice rather. Oh, sorry, I have also some throat infection. I'm really sorry. So if we consider, just forget the international invisible boundary where we need passport to cross over that boundary. The tigers, they don't need, the birds, they don't need, the crocodiles, they don't need any passport. So forget about the international boundary. Just mid of the river, it went off. In the as a whole, the GPM delta, if we see, if you see in the Google Earth also, chronologically, if you travel from east to west, from the Meghna part to the Ganges part, in the India part, so it's like a time machine. So the Meghna part is still progressing. There is some growth. A lot of islands are coming up. Still, it is there. In the middle part, it is stagnant kind of thing. No such growth. Rather, a little bit degradation is there. And in the western part, in the Indian side, there is a lot of degradation. So if you think about this degradation in the entire delta, if we consider the sea level rise rate is almost similar, and there is some fallacy, because in Indian part, in the Sundarban designated area, there is only one tide gauge in Sagar Island. And that is also wrongly positioned. That is very, very strong erosion prone area where it is positioned. Now we have to depend on the Haldia port tide gauge. And after that, towards Bangladesh, the next tide gauge is in the Huron Point. So it's far off. So in India, actually, there is no such concerted, concerned effort about the delta management, which is available, which is visible in Bangladesh part. So whenever we are traveling from GBM east to west, it's basically kind of time machine. So this is the present in the Meghna part. This is the near future in the middle part, near Khulna, Barishal part. And then in entering into the Indian part, that is the future. So what can happen in future if we do not care about the delta? So it is there. And there is some tectonic tilt towards the east, southeast, which actually causing the river shifting towards the eastern part. And there are some water conflict between India and Bangladesh. And Anisul Bhai is experienced enough that whenever we used to come up with some water component in our modeling or some other kind of thing, we really a little bit scared. Maybe we will be behind the bar. So we have to depend on some proxy data or some secondary published data. We cannot really come up with some primary data or some measurement also. And in Ganges River, the lower part, we cannot measure anything because that is the what I say jurisdiction of the Kolkata Port Trust. So we cannot really make any measurement, tide or something measurement. But we do sometimes, but for a limited space and time. And if we talk about the degradation, there are so many causes. It's not only sea level rise. If you think about the Flandrian transgression, within 1,000 years, the rate was around 9 meters sometimes. The water level goes up 9 meters. And we are talking about few millimeter, half meter maximum, 50 centimeter. So during Flandrian transgression, whether the delta building process get halted? Not really. Why? Because in last 2 million years, we actually lost so many rivers. We killed so many rivers. And that's why the sediment-borne water flow is not coming to the Bay of Bengal. So the rivers are important. Whenever we are talking about the deltas, the rivers are important. If we talk about Meghna, Meghna is still carrying a lot of sediments, and these sediments are coming to the Bay of Bengal, the estuary region, and these sediments are actually counteracting the sea level rise impact. Sea level rise is there, definitely, but the sediments are counteracting the sea level rise impact, and there is some growth, progression of the delta. But in case of Ganges, the water flow is not there. It actually choked up. In last 2 million years, we have reduced the sediment influx 1 by 11 time. So only few sediments are really reaching the estuary region. And then the estuary region cannot supply that sediment towards the coast by the wave action, which is the food of the coast. So in Ganges, you will witness that more than 500, 600 interventions are there from the source to the sink. And that's why there is strong erosion in the coastal region. And we are always talking about sea level rise, the climate change issue. We are not talking about that we have poorly managed our river. And again, whenever the river are with low flow velocity, then it will actually get silted. The river beds will get silted, and the river beds will go up. And whenever in the monsoon or in sometimes in the high tide time, the riverbed cannot retain the water within its bed. And what will happen? It will actually put pressure on both the banks, and there will be riverbank erosion. And if there is really that much of sea level rise impact, why the open sea islands are not really altered or submerged, like Jambuti, like Sagar, Longsand, all these islands? Why from the Bay of Bengal, 30 kilometers inside, a few islands really suffered? And we are talking about that is due to sea level rise. It's not really so simple. It's really complex. And Kolkata Port Trust was entrusted to build 7 guide walls in the river channel of Ganges to rejuvenate the Haldia port navigation. And they put only 2 and 2 more partially and stopped building the guide walls. And for that, there is strong erosion and submergence of few islands, 30 kilometers inside from the Bay of Bengal. And above that, where they put the guide walls properly, the Noyachor, it was earlier known as Agnimarichor, it actually grew like anything, 10, 15 times. And a lot of islands came up also, just north of Noyachor. So in a smaller region, 2 big islands coming up, there is a growth. 2 islands submerged, 1 island is partly damaged, and the coastal erosion is going on, and the open sea islands are still there, still actually living on the water. So how can it be? It's only due to sea level rise? Not really. I don't think so. And the theme of this session, whether our next generation can see Sundarban. There is a lot of hue and cry. There is a lot of panic created by the scientists, but no solutions. I'm talking about that. I'm really concerned about that. People are creating panic. They are not providing any kind of solution. How to manage the things? You just remove the Farakka barrage, you can see what can happen. You know the situation of Farakka barrage. That is the last nail in the coffin of the river Ganges. And there is some salinity, low salinity in the river part, in the Ganges, in the Raimongal part, and in the Matla part. But all the upper rivers, like Saraswati, Ichamoti, all those rivers are choked up. And that's why the stagnant high tide, they are creating a lot of salinity change in the soil and river water. And this salinity change actually changing the fish variety, changing the mangrove variety, species, all these things. And that is strongly connected with the livelihood of the people therein, how they can survive. We are creating the problems and we are blaming climate change, sea level rise. So it's there. I'm not a modeler like Anisul Bhai, but I can see on the field what's happening. Recently, I went to the Ichamoti, entire course of Ichamoti, I traveled for a field trip. And it's really pathetic. And there is no such trace of Saraswati River. It has become like irrigation canal. And there is no flow. A lot of hyacinth covering that river. It's not river really. So we have killed all those rivers. We have stopped all the fresh water flow from the upland. And again, we are having some problem. Then we are blaming the sea level rise and climate change issue. So this is important. The salinity is important. Only by the salinity we can come up with some kind of other kind of thinking for the root causes. We can go there and we can think about the degradation, the process of degradation and the reasons of the degradation in proper sense. And I think there is no such panic. If we want to manage that properly for the next generation, whether they can see Sundarban or not, that is important. We have to come up with some solutions for proper management aspects. That's all. Thank you very much. The World Cup match is there, so I will not talk much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Govinda, very much. So, from your talk, I could understand that sea level rise is not the only culprit. I think we have other factors which are playing a very important role in this deteriorating health of Sundarbans. So I think we should start from the source and then we should think about the sink. That is what, Govinda, I think there is a hand raised by Professor Hawk. Yeah, Hawk sir.
Yeah, I cannot, in fact, control my temptation to supplement to him. He said about sediment. Sediment is a resource. It is not a problem. So we are trying to say this for years to the government level, but they don't believe. They think that sediment is a problem because it is they needs continuous dredging, etc., etc. In a recent study, we found a very interesting study, the delta sustainability, and this can be, I think, a key for the solution. Sedimentation in Bangladesh part with lot of intervention, you know, all the coastal polders, what damage they are doing. Even it is more than the rate of sea level rise. Sea level rise is reported to have a range of some 5 to 8 millimeter per year. Sedimentation at present state is 6 to more than 8 millimeter per year in Bangladesh coast. I think for the India, it will be something similar. So what we need, a very good sediment management. But the irony is that we cannot remove the embankment, the boulders. It is there, it is reality. If you go to the coast, ask the people, I want to remove the boulder, they will immediately kill you. They need the boulder for the protection from flood because they are now habituated. We cannot go back to before 1960s when Ostomash was there. So it is a reality now. And the embankment, the boulders are doing the damage because we are, the sediments cannot be now deposited on the floodplain. Sediments are deposited on the rivers. That is creating waterlogging. It is our fault. And what Twin correctly said, that it is not only the sea level rise. We are always blaming sea level rise, but we never see the prospect of sedimentation of delta, which is a natural resource. So there is a solution to save the Sundarban, that if we think about the proper management of the sediments, because what is the problem? Because we are allowing sediment to deposit where we don't need it and obstructing the sediment where we need it. This is the reverse we're doing. So it is our fault. So it is very interesting, in fact, that twins thinks in the same way. So I think this is the time because for the Joint River Commission, other Indian and Bangladesh water sharing, they talk a lot about water sharing, but no talk is going about sediment sharing, sediment management. What will really happen if sediment is blocked from upstream? Because if there is no sediment, no delta building process, no sedimentation in floodplain, and no land building, so sea level rise will take its role. So I think this is a time to talk about sediment. Sediment is a resource more than the water. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tuinda has raised his hand. Tuinda.
Yeah, just to add with Anshul Bhai, that is in the Indian part, especially in the Ganges part, that is the sedimentation rate is basically 1 to 2 millimeter maximum. Okay, so that is the situation, worst situation. And also, whenever we were talking, we were discussing, we did not really consider to mention that the coastal subsidence. So in the Bangladesh part, it's a little bit higher. In the Indian part, a little bit lower maybe, but due from that Alison report. But still, we could not measure the subsidence rate. So that is also another important factor. And Anishul Bhai can remember that whenever in the ISPA Delta, we have produced some one publication working with the SLAM model and breaking the SLAM model with the inundation level. And 13 to 17% forest, mangrove forest can be impacted up to 2050. That was our 200, sorry, not 2050, 200, 2100 year. And that was our finding. So nothing to worry really, but the concern is that the mangrove zonation will change a lot. And that is connected with all the ecosystem services. That is important. Thank you very much.
Yeah, true, Swin, but wind is true. But still, I will say that GBM still has a resource of sediment. Compare with Mekong Delta. In a recent paper, I have seen that subsidence in Mekong is some places 25 millimeter per year. So, and they concluded that even if they now supplement sediments, the Mekong Delta will not survive. So, but GBM is still in a better position. So if we do not do something very stupid, we can still save the Sundarban and the Delta as well.
Exactly. I agree with you. And the proper sediment and water management is key issue here. And the Mekong things are a little bit different because there are a lot of sand raising in the upper part. And that is actually creating a lot of problem in the lower part. So that is going on. But still, we have a lot of opportunity to protect Sundarban and rejuvenate basically the Sundarban ecosystem. That's true. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we move over to Dr. Aparna Bera. She would be giving her, sharing her experience. So before we call her, I would just give her a very brief introduction about ma'am. She has conducted her PhD on impact and assessment of climate-induced migration and livelihood management of Sagar Island, West Bengal. She is a co-founder and research director of SAIARD. She has more than 14 years of teaching experience as well as professional. She has been engaged in Government of West Bengal Education Board as an expert member to prepare the course curriculum. As a climate researcher and livelihood expert, she has number of publication which has been indexed, Scopus indexed. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening to all the great stalwart professors. And it is for me a great opportunity to listen to these kind of introspective inputs of my professors. From their research work, I got so much inspiration to work on this field. And from my personal experience, I just my homeland was Diamond Harbor, nearer to a place nearer to Sundarban. So there are a lot of students came to study the college beside our house. And from the very childhood, from 90s, I got to listen to their surviving story, their livelihood struggles. And from them, I just came through that their day-to-day struggling of living on this shrinking and sinking island. And they have seen their homes engulfed, farmland salinized, and livelihood depleted by the rising sea for very past few decades. So I came to assessing their climate-induced vulnerability. And as we know that the effects of climate change are causing large-scale displacement, especially in low-lying islands, they face the increased threats due to their higher exposure and lesser resilience, all we know. So I just like to share, actually pertaining to the very title of today's theme, that through my recent publications, I just measured the decadal percent change of Ghodamara and Sagar Island. Sagar is the largest inhabited island. So the decadal change increased 1999 to 2009. It was 0.50, and then from 2010 to 2020, it rise up to minus 0.62 for the Ghodamara Island. And for the Sagar Island, it was now from 1992 to 2009, it was minus 4.45. Then it gone up to minus 11.33% for from the 2010 to 2020. And now I have also incorporated a study to actually, as we all have listened, that uh, this is not happening due to only the sea level rise. There are subsidence involved. And there are so many socioeconomic determinants also that linked to this marginalized populations' daily struggle and crisis to their resilience status. So, according to IPCC Air 5 framework, I took 26 parameters and studied the economic linkages, determinants. Then it showed that 90.5% Mujas of Sagar Island, which is 15.3% of the population, are at the, especially they are located at the southern and southeastern part, they are at high risk. So I'm just looking forward to the management portion and the very political economy of the planned relocation that could be a solution, or the all in all. I am looking forward to mm, listen more from Anishul sir and from Tuhin sir and from ma'am also, that the crisis and effective policy implications that could be done in long-term sustainable management for these areas. That's for me.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your experience. Now, I think it is open for discussion. If anybody wants to ask any questions, our honorable speakers are there. If anybody wants to ask any question, you can ask. Okay, sir. I would like to ask a question to Professor Hawk. Sir, you talked about embankments. So at many a times, sir, would that give us a permanent solution?
Yeah, there is a lot of talk for and against embankment. The reality is to protect the locality from flooding, you need embankment. But the problem is it is an intervention, it isn't hard measure. So whenever you are constructing an embankment, you are obstructing the flow. So you are disrupting the water and sediment balance. So that must be an reverse effect. So what is the solution? This is a long debate going on in Bangladesh for a long time, because we now we can see the effect of embankment is a waterlogging in the western part of the coast. It's a huge problem, and it is believed that it is created by the embankments. So what is the solution? The answer is still we don't know. Still we are looking for it, that what can we do, because we have to keep the embankment. It is a reality in the coast, especially in the coast, and also in other parts of the country. Because one approach is living with the flood, increasing adaptation, but that takes time. The people needs immediate solution, and there's the embankment.
Mm.
So the solution could be keep the embankment and try to find a solution to manage the sediment water. How we can distribute the sediment in proper places, in proper time by keeping the embankment. So this is a very difficult problem now, very, very difficult problem. But when we start constructing the coastal embankment in the 1960s, the situation was, or the solution was maybe easier than what it is now. But the people at that time, perhaps they didn't know the consequence, what will happen if they build embankment after, say, 60 years. But so if we learn from the past, we take the lesson from that if we want to construct any new embankment, we have to think twice that whether we should do it. Because in a recent study, we have found that because in our central coast, still there is no embankment. People are living there. Absolutely no noticeable problem because they are habituated with the flood there. And unfortunately, government is thinking to construct embankment there also. So we did a study that what will happen if embankment is constructed in the central part, and we found that if embankment is made there, flooding will be stopped there, no problem, but flood will be shifted to other place, risk transferred. So in fact, this kind of hard structure always transfer the risk from one place to another. It is not a solution. So I think we are now living in a transition time between the hard structure and the soft measure, that what we should do, because we already have seen the impact effect of embedded effect of embankments. And at the same time, we are facing the reality that we need the embankment. So what is the solution? The answer is still we don't know. But we are trying to find the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for clearing this doubt. Fahad Rabid has, tell me any question you want to ask to the speaker.
Yes, thank you, Shungita ma'am. Hello, Dr. Haq. Hello, Dr. Dr. Ghosh. My name is Mohammed Fahad Rabid. My question is to you, both to you actually. Sir, I'm currently studying in Independent University, Bangladesh, where I'm studying climate change. Sir, I actually follow the international policies that are actually formulated and formed to address international problems, especially especially the fundings and all. So I have found something really interesting, that when it comes to policy making, the scientists are on the same page, the social civil societies are on the same page, but it's really hard and it's really sad that government and diplomats are not on the same page. So, sir, in terms of taking care of Sundarban or rivers of Bangladesh and India, how can we bring the government and bring the diplomats on the same page so that we can actually make it work, solve all the problems that are rising? That's the first question, sir. And my second question is that, sir, I'm a climate change activist. So what would be your advice for a Gen Z climate activist in order to preserve our biodiversity and forest? Thank you, sir.
Who will go
Sir,
first?
sir, please answer.
Okay, Tuhin, you know policy better than me.
No. I'm not a policy person. But it's true what Fahad was talking about, that the government unusually sometimes trust on the scientists. It's true. And also, if you think about the decision makers or the policy makers, they don't really have any time to read out the publications and reports, the entire reports, all these things. So if you come up with some bullet point things, maybe half page, 1 page, they can come up with some kind of interest or attracted to that kind of things sometimes, not always, or maybe few times only. So there is a real gap. But I think Anisul Bhai can make me correct, or Madam can make me correct. But in Bangladesh, my experience is that government is sometimes more inclined to the scientists and their views and their findings. But in India, as I was talking about, the delta is basically the neglected part of the Indian landmass. The people, even in West Bengal also, people are not really keen to listen from you what are the solutions. And that might be also our fault, because most of the time we create panic, we come up with some issue and raise our hand to point out the issue, but we cannot really provide solutions. So I think we should be more concerned about providing solutions, because we are researching with the public money. It's not our own money. So we should have some kind of commitment for that, number one. Number two is that there must be some kind of interface between the government and the academia. Because whenever we have done something, we have produced some publication or report, we used to come up with a stakeholder workshop and call the decision makers or policy makers for that stakeholder workshop and put the gun to their shoulder. Our job is done. Now it's your job. But there must be some kind of innovations. And this is actually for your second question. There must be some kind of innovations. Smaller acts might cause larger impact. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay, Fahad, I can experience some from my recent experience with the government. High level government official, the secretary, we shared some of our result with them. Twin said that some policy paper, even they are not interested to read half this policy paper. They don't have the time. So what he did, we, especially me, I presented a very nice animation of the model. So he was very pleased because very easy to understand. And in that meeting, he realized in fact, we made him realize that sediment is a resource. So, so this is one way that you go for a very easy approach, very visible approach to the policymakers about your science finding. And Tuhin is right that you have to give them solution, not always say about the problems. They want to hear about the solution. But the problem is implementation, because yeah, they can say that, yeah, very good work, we agree. But implementation, it is the most difficult part. Do they take your work, your solution to their policy? The answer is very difficult to answer this question, because my experience is when a problem is given to you by the government, and if you give a solution, then it is their government responsibility to implement it. Because recently I have also experienced related to that, because the government asked us, our university, to develop a flood forecasting model, a risk-based model. So we developed that. Government liked it very much, and now they are doing all the stakeholder conference, etc. It is the responsibility of the government. There is the other side of the story. We also develop an adaptation model that is not ordered by the government, and we are struggling to digest government with that model. They are raising several questions. They are not, okay, very good. We'll see. So this is a very complicated situation, because so I think the best way what the Western world is doing, that the problem should come to the academia from the policymakers. And academia will give a solution, and they will take the best solution out of this. Because in the USA, the US universities, thousands of universities, they are doing some research, giving a solution, thousands of solutions, and government is taking one solution, which is the best solution. So that culture is not yet practiced in this region. For India, I thought it is better than Bangladesh, but Tuhin said that no, it is not better. So maybe worse. But situation is changing, because previously, because I'm a modeler, so when you present a model, you have to present some equation. But now, if you present equation, government officials are very angry. Don't show these equations. So now they are very smart. So you have to be very smart in the presentation also, that you show the very results, which is very understandable to them, very easy to understand, very easy to interpret, and give them solution, specific guideline. Then maybe they will take your solution. So Fahd, and about the climate change issue, so I think it's similar for all problems, all issues.
Absolutely, sir. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, both of you.
Just to add one thing, that I'm very happy to hear that government ordered the university to come up with some kind of flood forecasting model. but our government they never asked us to prepare anything. So that is the reality. And another experience I can share, that in 1997, I pointed out that the Ghoramara Island is under tremendous erosion and we need some intervention. So I met the minister also that time. And he told me that that's fantastic work. We really need this kind of work, but they never intervened. Okay. So in 2003, I came up with some solutions again to raise the point. And in 2008, they started making some kind of intervention without any consultation when the erosion actually shifted from that place. So they spent a lot of money there, but never consulted us. So from the southwest part, the erosion that time shifted to the northwest, but they have intervened in the southwest part and spent so much of money, public money. So that is our experience. And in recent times, during DECMA also, in our last project with Anisul Bhai also, we experienced a lot of contrasting things because we were actually working in Mahanadi Delta and Indian Sundarban Delta. And in the Indian Sundarban Delta part, whenever we used to come up with any kind of stakeholder workshop, if we invited that 50 people, we expect that 4 to 5 people at most they will attend. And in Mahanadi Delta, we invited 50 people in case, and 70 to 75 people they attended the whole day, and they repeatedly asked us, what else your findings, and a lot of things actually incorporated in their climate action plan in the Odisha government from our DECMA findings. So that is the contrast. It's a question of mindset, whether the mindset is open, acceptable stage or not. So that's the contrast. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, when you are giving any results to the government, it takes such a long time. Implementation now doesn't. It is not a reality. Maybe what study you have done maybe 5 years back. Now, after 5 years, if they are implementing, definitely nature is not waiting for them. So definitely, it is very difficult. This red tapeism is not going, at least in our part of the world. Okay, Aparna madam, you had raised your hand. Ma'am, you want to ask anything? If not, then yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, yes. I have. I just want to know the as the initial studies involving of to so modeling. So I went through his one paper. It was about sustainable livelihood security model. So I want to listen to more from sir how this could be helpful in livelihood development. And my second question uh, to him, sir, that is actually in Indian part, delta is neglected, and we are always belonging in the responsive phase in case of disaster management, and how we could move on from responsive phase to reacting phase. Uh, Sir has worked with PDNA, post disaster assessment. I would listen more from in this context from them.
Okay, first, so I think that paper basically it is probably from one of my students, and it's rather old because now my concept has little bit changed because I think whatever you talk about sustainability, you should think about resilience. I think we should do whatever we have to make a community resilient. If we can make a community resilient, then I think the question of hazard, other things, that will not come. So, so what I thought before about the sustainability, now my concept is a little bit changing. That you need to talk about the risk minimization, which will increase the resilience of the community. I can give one example because there are a lot of activities here in Bangladesh about the anticipatory action, especially during the flood and the cyclones. So there are many organizations who are doing this anticipatory action. Then what they do, that before the cyclone, they pick some areas which are susceptible to damage, and they give some money to the people so that they can use that money so that the damage to the cyclone will not be would be bearable for them. Or in other words, they are trying to reduce the risk. So what it is, so with this money, what the people are doing, in most of the cases, they are using the money to buy food. So if you think about resilience, so these activities is not helping to build a community resilient. Because we are not doing anything in pre-disaster time. So the embankments remain there. The damaged houses are not being rebuilt as a resilient house, so it remains there. So all the activities, if you think about the sustainability, so it should be targeted to minimize risk for any future hazard. So if we can do that, we can just set a focus. Yeah, I want to make this community resilient. Then all your activities, anticipatory action or pre-disaster activities, or building the embankment or destroying the embankment, whatever you want to do, should be targeted to that. That will be sustainable.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you,
Uh,
sir.
And now there's maybe Dr. Joyanto Gork wants to ask something. Sir, you can ask your question.
Uh, Good evening, everybody, respected dignitaries. I would like to give my proposal. That is, since my research work has been done on Sundarbans, so name is same, language is same, but whenever we are discussing that your Sundarban and this side Sundarban, and that means Sundarbans of Bangladesh and Indian Sundarbans. Now, what I found during my research work, that is Sundarban Delta, that is divided into three parts. Morphologically, I have studied that mature and moribund and the active delta. And I have found also that the embankments also shifts according to the shifting of the rivers, and from the colonial periods since 1770s, the embankments also have been shifted according to along with the shifting of the rivers. But we are also, I think, mobilizing the new generation to do the research work on the basis of the erosion and deposition like that, and bringing resilience or increasing the resilience to the people of the delta region. But what I found, that is, we are misleading the new generation, that we are not emphasizing on the matter that the active delta, which should be mature in future, instead of that we are allocating people and settlements there just in lieu of the political gain, the political parties. I think it is happening in both the countries. And why not we are thinking it as a part of the subcontinent heritage place, and whenever we are proposing some plannings or some recovering the heritage of the Sundarban Delta, we, the two countries, are not combinedly doing the work. We are doing this, we are doing it separately. So my question is, can't there be any organization out of these two countries, or ahead of the two nations, which will decide from the UNO or from some other organizations, which will restore the previous heritage of the delta? So if you give your opinion, I would be very happy to listen from you. Am I audible?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's ideally very, very true that if we can do that, that would be really good. But if we think about the solutions and the proper management for the entire GBM delta, we need to talk about the water part. Okay, because this water is the lifeline of any delta, water and sediments. And whenever we will go for that, in the political stage, two countries are representing, they have some conflict regarding the water sharing. Okay. So that's the first level of barrier, which is very, very crucial one. So whenever any kind of other agency, say UN or UK government or some other Netherlands, the Dutch government or somebody can come up, they will also face the same thing, the conflict on the water sharing part. So this is crucial. That is the first level of barrier. And again, we have some opportunity, because if you keep aside the internal water related issue, but the management part, say for adaptation things, some policies, some implementation, we can learn a lot from Bangladesh, I believe, which is not going on. Okay. And another important issue is that the development politics. So people are really putting pressure on the government that we need the embankment more raised one, maybe 2 feet more high. And if you think about that, whenever the embankment is growing high and the ground level is really 8 to 10 feet below than the top of the embankment, people are really slipping below the water during the high tide. So they have some kind of scary things in their mind that if there is no embankment, we cannot really live. Our agricultural field will be inundated with the saline water, and we cannot really cultivate. We cannot really live here. We will lose our habitat, everything. So they put pressure on the government for raising or for maintaining or for installing the embankments. So this is going on. And whenever Anishul Bhai was nicely explaining that whenever there is any kind of obstruction, the water cannot enter inside the island. The sediments cannot be deposited in the island system. And before any kind of maturity, the sediments are protected from the island system. So those are all our immature sediments. If you look at the Bangladesh Sundarban part, the forest part, nobody is living within the forest part. There are 10-kilometer and 10-kilometer buffer area. People used to enter into the forest, but not living within the forest. But in our case, Indian part, the people are living within the forest and they have cleared the forest. 60% of the forest already cleared. And if there was no tiger, you just hypothetically think about that. If there was no tiger in Sundarban, so far I can imagine that all the forest would have gone. So all the things are there. And I think we can come up with some kind of collaboration. Both countries can collaborate in several aspects. Maybe we can keep aside the water part. Maybe we can come up with some solutions and cross-border learning. So many opportunities are there, still there. I believe so. Thank you.
I think what Twin said is exactly correct, because we faced this. Twin, you remember that when I showed some result about modeling of joint GBM in the one is predict my workshop, there is severe reaction from the Indian part because it deals with water. So there is a problem of water conflict with the no doubt about this. We have to accept this reality. But the scientific community, we don't care about the political barrier. But I think Sundarban can be used as a common platform, because both India and Bangladesh love Sundarban. We want to protect Sundarban. We like to save Sundarban. So for the sake of Sundarban, I think it can be a starting point, because we want to save Sundarban. Both, I think there is no conflict regarding this, both from India and Bangladesh. So whatever Sundarban needs, if we start the solution from there, because Sundarban needs sediments, Sundarban does not need excessive salinity. So based on that, if we want to find a solution, okay, what amount of water is needed for Sundarban? Remember, I repeat, only for Sundarban. Then I think it is possible to reach a consensus, because Sundarban is we love Sundarban very much, no doubt about this. We don't want let the Sundarban to be depleted in future. So that can be a starting point. Very complicated water politics between India and Bangladesh cannot be solved overnight. But Sundarban can be a very, very good starting point. And as Dr. Jayanto said, I think no external organization will be able to solve this problem. No UN, nothing, Netherlands, no, it's not possible, because neither Bangladesh nor India will listen to them, because water is very sensitive here. But Sundarban is very common property. So as Dr. Jayanto said, that Sundarban doesn't need a country border. When I first look at the salinity distribution, combined GPM, it is a dome shaped. I never seen this. So we always see the part of the Sundarban or salinity distribution. It is the same, but geographically it is same. The system-wise it is the same. So I think scientists should look the issue from a system perspective, not a country perspective. And Sundarban can be a starting point. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. And just I wanted to add to Dr. Joyanto, why do we need a third party intervention? We are grown up enough, we can solve our problems if we look after our part. So I think if Indian component and Bangladesh component can be, we are not segregating, but if we look after our matters, then I don't think so we need any UN intervention. That is from my side. If we have all scientists working, if the government chips in the hand at the right time, I think this problem can be solved. Don't you agree, sir, Tuminda and Hawk, sir?
Yes, definitely. I think
Yes,
so.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah, and there are a lot of effort is going on till 2014-15. I believe that there something will happen very soon.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm also
The first treaty, Indo-Bangladesh Treaty on Water, has been signed in September 2022. So it is a good sign. So maybe the Tista Water Treaty would also be solved. And soon there'll be some solutions, definitely. So we thank you. We thank everybody for this enlightened discussion, especially to our panelists. And I think this would be never ending, but because of time constraint, we need to wind up. So thank you, everybody. And people are looking at the time because important event is happening around us. So we should also move to that. So thank you, everybody. Can we all leave?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. It's a very nice discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, learned a lot really. Thank you very much.
We learned a lot from
So
all of
today,
your discussions.
today all should support Morocco to win this match.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Definitely. Yes.
and tomorrow Argentina.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sir, we are joining you for the dinner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Dr. Haq.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You're a legend to us, sir.
Yes, sir.
To the ones who are doing GIS in Bangladesh, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've studied your reports. It's really amazing, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so bye.
Sorry. Dropped.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody. Enjoy the match.
Good night.